Hello and welcome back to the 14th episode of our still unnamed survival series. We are going to start off things a little different today with a time lapse. We are going to do some terraining. And without further delay, let's jump right on into it. With all that terraining done, we can now move forward with our project today. We have a cluttered village. I want to clean it up a little bit, and we need a place to put all of our farms. So we're going to be gathering the materials to build a barn right in the middle of the area that we just terrained. I know this isn't a farm, but these old village paths do add to the clutter and the general ugliness and feel of the village. So to fix that, we're going to be putting in our own paths that are a little bit more flowy, going between the buildings, and a little bit more beautiful. We will be designing some new paths to fit our needs and to fit our theme. And the first step in to move forward is to rip out the old ones. They will still feature the path block, but they're going to be a little bit more organically flowing between buildings and have some light mixed in there because we don't want any mobs or creepers, especially creepers, spawning in our paths. We no longer have paths. We have ripped them up, replaced them with grass, and now we can do the next thing on our little checklist and go to the nether. We need to pick up some resources from various biomes in the nether. These biomes being the Crimson Forest for the Crimson Nylium, and the Warped Forest for the Warped Nylium. Even though we gathered up all of this Nylium, we aren't going to be using that at all today. Instead, we're going to be building a small barn type structure that's in the same theme as our village. We need another building just to fit all of these small little automatic farms that are going to make our life a little bit easier. The theme for this village is a small little farming town outside of the main country's capital. So it only fits our theme to put all of the farms and small little buildings in this area. But as it turns out, I don't actually have the resources to build this barn right now. We are out of stone. everything that we mined from the hill and everything we've mined up until now has been pushed directly towards our mega base, which is going to be the city capital. So we gotta go mining for some stone, some gravel, and some sand. We already have the wood needed to build the barn, so we won't need to actually go cut down some trees, which is a good thing. It means our tree farm's working. We will eventually put a building over our mine too, but I'm not gonna lie here, I'm kinda struggling with the ideas area with this mine specifically. It doesn't really click for me. If you have any cool ideas, leave it down in the comment section below. I am now back from the mine. We got a lot of resources, we got some stone, we got some andesite, and now we're just gonna start off our build here with the foundation, I'd say. But we're gonna change it up a little bit. We're gonna fly over our village and get a good idea of where we want things to be. We have to keep in mind the way that the village looks, the travel distance, and if it'll be easy to build a path here. One thing that I have noticed when I'm flying around here is our village is a little gridlocked. It looks like a square, or maybe even a triangle or something. It looks stagnant. There's no flowing like an old medieval village would be, where somebody just picks a plot and plops a house. If you notice with these two buildings, they're very close and almost perfectly in front of each other. That generally doesn't happen in old medieval villages. Yes, it can, but it didn't, especially in farming towns, which is the idea that I'm trying to get with this little area. So I think to put a twist into this, we're gonna put our house at a diagonal. I think that'll break up the pattern and give an interesting look to our area. We've gone out 20 blocks on a diagonal, and I think that's a good starting point. I don't really build with diagonals too often. I've only built maybe one attempt, and it did not look pretty. Full disclosure there. So we're gonna try it here and hope for the best. I'm gonna try and stay in the same theme as our village, and hopefully that'll give me a good gauge on if it's looking good or not. In the other builds in our village, we have a support beam about every 5 blocks or so. So we're gonna try and mirror that in the diagonals. It's a little awkward to count, but I'm counting from the inside, then block, and then the inside again, if that makes sense. So the idea is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then a log, so you can still see the 5 blocks in between our posts. And I'm hoping that'll give the idea that I'm going for some clarity and keep the theme of the village in some form of cohesive manner. I do want to try and keep everything in one single theme, and that's something that we're going to have to think about more and more as we progress in our world. The more buildings that we try to cram into one space, the easier it is to blur the respective theme that we are trying to aim for, and that's something that I really want to try to avoid doing in this series. Speaking of keeping things consistent, I'm gonna make this a little bit easier on myself by keeping the consistent numbers of 5, 10, and 20 in a very simple shape for now. I don't do too much diagonal building, and I think it's gonna give me a better result if we do it this way and stick with the same numbers rather than if we try and change it up a little bit. And this is the shape we got using that method. Pretty much just a right angle. Now I'm just gonna go around our little formation here and throw in a little bit of texture with the walls. This texture is something that we've done with all of the other builds in this village, and that's something that we can keep consistent specifically in this village. Our themes are gonna change and vary slightly from where we are in the world, and this is just one of the ideas that we can keep with our little farming village. So I think we are gonna keep this. This is our foundation. We're gonna build a gigantic red barn on the top of this. It's gonna look interesting, I hope. It's gonna look good, I hope. I use a question mark because I honestly have no idea. But for now, we're just gonna put a trim around our foundation to separate the two little areas. We're just gonna put something a little thin along just to keep that separation and the structure. Buildings look weird if they don't have structure, so that's what we're gonna be trying to keep here. Along those same lines of structure, we're going to extend those little beams coming from the base of our foundation up another 5 or 6 blocks. We want to keep those numbers very similar so it looks not jumbled and like garbage. It also adds a little bit of depth in your builds when you add the structure beams like this 1 block out. And this is what the structure looks like. I think it looks pretty good, but I think it's time that we actually add some color to our barn. Before we add the color, I forgot that barns need barn doors, so we gotta build a door first. And this is the diagonal barn door. I think it turned out pretty good. And now we can add some color. And as you can see, I have gone around the base of our little building here and just popped in some red concrete powder. I think that this gives a nice color texture to our barn. I didn't want the solid fixed concrete. I wanted that sandy texture, almost like sun-dried worn paint. And I'm not gonna lie to you here, I just saw these mushroom blocks in a chest somewhere, and I was like, hey, that matches my color palette. Maybe I'll just mix it in with some sort of pattern. I think it's turning out alright. I might throw some bone blocks in to match the white spots. And now that we have our walls done, we're just gonna throw on some slabs and get started on our roof. Like the door, it's gonna be slightly rounded and curved. I'm also gonna try and go for a worn down kind of aesthetic roof. Something with dark and light splotches of wood, almost like rotted wood. If you've seen wood in an old barn, it slowly gets darker over time when it gets waterlogged and worn down. So that's kind of the idea that we're gonna go for here, is an old roof with some slightly repaired wood and some older wood splotched in between there. Something that shows its age in a nice looking way. The way that I'm going to try and accomplish this is by randomly splotching together oak and spruce wood and hope that it doesn't look like some random jumbled mess on a slightly decent looking diagonal build. This is the first time that I'm trying something like this, so I'm hoping for the best here. I think this is turning out pretty good. I'm pretty happy with how this is looking so far. Diagonal roofs are pretty complicated, and this is looking really good. And I want it to curve a little bit too, so instead of going up by every slab now, I'm gonna go out by every 2 and hope that that kind of matches the arch of the door. That's kind of my thought process here, is slower arc equals good looking curve. We're gonna put a pin in the roof real quick. I had an idea to make a little watchtower on the top of this, and I thought that I would give it a go. I think that it might fit the stony texture. It could also break up the diagonal a little bit. It could add a little bit more dimension and texture to our overall build. And everything is square in the village. All the old buildings are square. This building's square, just a slightly skewed square. I don't want to be seen as a square. So I'm tired of squares. I'm going to make a circle or a cylinder. But in all reality, I just noticed that the roof was starting to look a little plain, and I wanted to build something that would break it up. And just to make sure that this wasn't a mistake, we're gonna fly out and have a little look. I think that this keeps the roof a little bit interesting and overall improves the quality of the build. I think we're gonna keep this. So I'm gonna go around and build up the frame of this tower with the stone bricks, and then we're going to come back and add the similar detailing that we do with the foundation walls, and I'm hoping that'll look good. I've decided that I'm going to shrink this pillar as it goes up, just to add a little bit of dimension and keep this looking interesting. In my eyes, nothing is more boring than some flat single blocked wall or structure. I'm trying to keep it randomized in some form or another. We're gonna do a little flyby, see how it looks. I'm thinking it looks pretty good. I like that pattern, I like the structure. It's not gonna be solid stone brick, but I think we should make it taller. Oh, I missed. Oh my god. I didn't have a sword out. I guess I could have gone to the axe. Let's try that one more time. I think this looks good though. Very, very pretty. Just try and kind of keep in some form of theme here. We're gonna add another trim border at the top of this little tower. Just like how the foundation at the bottom of this barn has a trim separating the color, we're gonna do something very similar here, to where we're gonna have pillars on this trim to hold up and prop up this roof. This roof, I kind of have an idea of what I want it to look like, but it's less Viking and more Asian inspired, I guess. I know, I'm mixing up my themes here. I'm getting my cultures confused. I get it, but bear with me. I think that it's gonna look good. I think that it's gonna pull everything together and bring me that fantasy vibe I'm going for as well. I'm now gonna go around and add the structure and the pillars for the roof we're gonna put up. I'm gonna try and keep it in theme with the roof that we have built down on the main structure. So we're gonna just go with the same color scheme. We're gonna go with the spruce and the oak planks. I'm sure you all have seen roofs very similar to this in Minecraft before. We're gonna start this off by just throwing some stairs on the main bracings and hoping it looks good. We're not gonna build this roof at a diagonal. I'm thinking that if we build this in just the normal flat Minecraft way, it's gonna make it look that much more interesting when you see the build all together. When you have mixing of planes, I think that that is interesting. And I would like to try it. This series is all about trying new things in Minecraft, so I'm going to take my own advice and try something new with this build today, and hope it looks good. I'm just gonna finish out this layer around the roof by connecting the staircases all the way around on this layer. I think that'll bring the whole idea together and give it a nice slope. Just like that. I'm thinking this will look pretty good. The next layer on top of this bracing, we're just gonna throw some slabs right in the corners between these stairs. I think just one layer will do, but honestly, I don't know. We'll have to see. I'm liking the way this looks, so we're gonna add one more, little bit longer layer of slabs directly underneath these stairs. I'm going for kind of a gentle curve with this whole roof. I'm gonna have to build out a little bit. Yeah, I think that's looking good. So now we're just gonna bring it down to a point using the slabs. Oh, I fell. We'll use this opportunity to fly around and give it a little look-see. Yeah, I'm thinking that looks pretty good. I am probably gonna actually lower this floor a little bit. I feel like that might be the easier route. It just looks a little out of proportion to me. I finished the roof. I did still think that it was a little out of proportion with the floor being as high as it was, so I took that down a few blocks, and now we need to put the trim back. One thing that I did notice when we were flying by is this is still a little too square. It's basically a square on a different plane, and I don't know if I like that. So I'm gonna add something on one side. I don't know what that is yet, but I really just want to try and break up this boring shape. It's just a 90-degree corner, slightly askewed with the rest of the world. The heck? Huh. That's an odd glitch. Apparently I'm a ghost. So this is what I kind of came up with to break up this shape. I'm just gonna put a little horse stable in the back. Just right there. Right in the middle of one wall. I think that'll do just enough to make it slightly interesting. We're not gonna be using any stone brick or anything like that. So it's gonna break up the foundation pattern because it is placed on the foundation. I'm thinking that'll keep it interesting enough. But we're gonna build this in, again, the same style, keeping it in the same theme, same colors for the roof, Same structure block, same numbers, everything pretty much the same, just with a different idea in mind. At this point, I'm just trying to see what I can do with the same numbers and the same build. I think that's pretty good practice. Keeping the roof diagonal, again, same themes. So I'm just gonna lay out the structure and the idea of the roof before we texture it. This is the roof idea that I have. I'm probably not gonna stick with this as the final roof shape. I was accidentally placing some blocks wrong, and I thought that it actually looked really good, but I didn't know how to recreate that. So I'm gonna try and do that a little bit with this horse stable. It's like, you see, I'm kind of breaking up that pattern that we were seeing, and it just looks a little bit more random. I kind of like that. That's kind of the idea that I'm going for with this village, is rustic, unplanned, broken. So we're gonna do a quick little flyby here from every angle just to give a good look at our new barn. If you notice, I did break up the pattern on the actual roof as well. I really liked how it turned out on the top of the horse stable, so I went back and added it to the main part of our building. Yeah, I really like how this turned out. I am quite satisfied with this build. We are going to pick apart all the terrible things of it though. I think that the red could have been a little bit duller. I think concrete powder and the mushroom block was a little bit of a bad idea. So we might go back and change that out for something. If we notice in the village, in the first house that we built, we used the white terracotta and granite block. And I think that is a little bit better of a choice for a medieval style village. They didn't really have concrete, and I think it just fits the theme a little better, so we might have to do something about that, but we might not. For now, I think I'm going to say that we're going to add a little bit of lighting and depth to the tower itself just to show it off a little better, but that's about it. Next episode, we're going to work on the interior. It's kind of boring in here. And with that, we're going to call it an episode right here. Next episode, we will be working on the interior, adding some farms, and making it pretty. So for now, goodbye.